Hi, and welcome to the Fearless Money Management Podcast, where we empower women to take control of their finances. I'm your host, Clare Strong, and today I'm chatting with Lisa Risser, who's a certified CPA and general financial whiz, about the differences between saving and investing. Hi, Lisa, how are you?
Hi, Claire. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thank you. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Well, let's get straight into today's episode because I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit of a novice when it comes to today's topic, which is all about saving and investing. First of all, without kind of blinding me with science, tell me the differences between the two. What is the difference between saving and investment and investing on a very basic level?
So on a very basic level, the difference between saving and investing is saving is really more setting aside money for short-term goals or emergencies that may be needed. And investing is really thinking longer term and putting the money aside into something that's going to grow for you.
Okay, so can you give us some examples of that? So what would, for example, a typical savings setup look like, and what would an investment setup look like?
So savings would be something like, it's something that's going to be a low risk. It's going to be something that's easy to access if you need it. So that would be something like savings accounts, certificates of deposit, those types of things, setting aside money that you may need for an emergency, or you need to access and have that available for some short-term needs. Or you could be saving for a house or something. So that would be a savings.
Okay, got it. Right. Thank you for clearing that up, because I'm, as our listeners are growing along this journey, so am I, because I'm not a financial expert. I'm a journalist, which is why we have, you and our amazing guests on to provide that financial backbone to this. But I sometimes, I'll be honest, Lisa, I get a little confused and overwhelmed at what I should be doing with the money I am saving. Is this supposed to go into a whatever it is, or account, or I just read an article about, I should be investing my money and making it grow. And so I guess what I'm asking you is, what is the rule of thumb? Like, if I've got some money set aside, what should I be doing with that money?
Well, the first thing you want to do is to have money that you have in savings first for those short-term emergencies, those types of things.
Okay.
And that would be something that could be like a high yield savings account, CD, and so forth. When you're thinking about investing, it has to be money that you can set aside for longer term, and it might not be as accessible. So that could be when you're investing, then you're investing into stocks or bonds or real estate, and you're trying to grow that money over a longer period of time, and you're not anticipating that you may need it quickly. It's not for those unexpected emergencies. And so that's why you want to make sure you've got a certain amount of savings first, and then start focusing on the investing side.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying to us is don't run before you can walk. So we need to have, so just to recap then, because this is really important to know. So we need to have our savings set aside for emergencies. I know we've touched upon this before in different episodes, but a general rule of thumb, Lisa, is for 3 months, you need to have 3 months worth of expenses and money to live. Is that correct, generally speaking?
Well, generally speaking, you want to have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
Okay.
And that is something that you save up for, again, unexpected expenses or emergencies. It could be medical bills, car repairs. Let's say you lost your job, you need some money to carry you forward, and those types of situations. And it should be something that you can get access to quickly if needed. And that's your emergency fund. And the matter of whether it's 3 months or 4 months or 6 months depends a lot on your overall financial situation. So if your job is not as stable, for example, you might want to make sure you got 6 months, those types of things. So you want to really look at that. But that's really the rule of thumb, is to first have that emergency fund. When you're figuring out you've got a certain amount that you're setting aside after you pay your bills every month and so forth and your living expenses, first you want to have that emergency fund. So that's your first part of your savings.
Okay, so once we've got our 3, ideally 6 months worth of emergency savings, then what are the types of things we can do with our money as it relates to investing? And I've got to ask you this question as well, because this is always something that's confused me. How much money do I need to start investing? Is there a minimum amount that really I need to be working with?
A lot of it is really about changing your behavior and just having this behavior of automatic savings. It can be $100.
Okay.
The easiest thing to do is if you can have it be automatic. So out of every time you get paid, it automatically transfers a certain amount into a savings account, for example. And if you don't see it and it's automatic, then you get used to it. And then every time that you reassess and see if you can make that amount higher and increase the amount that you're savings. So if you find a way to reduce some of your expenses and you can save more, that's great. If you get a raise, it's really ideal if you can take the additional amount of income and start to save that and set that aside. And again, if you do it automatically, and you can set that up with your bank, then you don't really see it. And if you just act like it's just not even there and try not to think about it, and then it's just there if you have an emergency, and that's the first piece of that. And then when you've got your emergency fund, then you start thinking about any short-term goals. So that's when you start to save for, let's say, vacations or a wedding or a down payment on a house and things like that you start to then save for shorter term goals that you may have. And you want to make sure that you are investing in something that's a low fluctuations. It's not going to have, might not give you the highest rate of return if you're saving for short-term goals. But it's something that's safe. So you know that it's going to be there, because there can be, for example, in the stock market, especially depending upon what your investments are, some significant fluctuations up and down in the stock market. And you don't want to invest in something that potentially you need short term, and it just happens to be a downturn in the market, and now you just lost money. Over the long term, it makes money, but when you're looking at short-term goals, you want to be really safe in where you're putting your money.
Okay, so as it relates to investing, just that word, investing, words like the stock market, they sound a little terrifying to finance novices like me. They sound very technical, and as if I need to have a master's in business or finance to be able to even start playing in those leagues. And so try and just explain to me and to our listeners, Lisa, who may not be, financial wizards, the basics of investing and the different areas that come under the umbrella of investing.
Well, the first place to start investing is to look at your employer. So many employers will have retirement plans, and most of them will have some amount of matching. So Let's say they match 3% of what you put in. The best place to start is to invest in your retirement account up to the amount of the employer match. So if they're matching 3%, that's 100% return on your investment. So if you put in 3% and they match 3%, you just doubled your money. So you definitely want to start with any retirement plans options that you have with your employer first, and get it at least to the level that your employer matches. So that's an easy first start.
It is easy, and and it's great if you are in that situation. Like my husband, his employer is very generous in that way. But for those of us like myself who we're self-employed, or maybe our employer doesn't match our pension contributions, what then? What should we be looking at as it relates to investing?
Well, there's a lot of ways that you can invest that's easy.
Okay.
And some of the things that you can do is there's different tools that you can use online to help you to invest. You can just invest in a mutual fund, for example. There's lots of mutual funds out there that are easy to invest in, and you can do it that way. So there's different things that you can do that are very simple and easy to do, and there are apps everywhere that you can start with $100 and you can easily invest, and they show you give you lots of ideas about where to do that. But I think a mutual fund is a great first place because it gives you different stocks. You don't want to take all of your money that you're investing and put it into one stock.
Okay.
You don't want all your eggs in the same basket.
Sure.
Because if something happens, then that could be a significant hit for you financially if it happens with that one particular stock. And mutual funds, they've already figured out a balance within those funds. And a lot of these apps help you to find different mutual funds. So I think that that's always a really great place to start when you're starting to invest on your own.
Okay.
And that doesn't even require, a financial professional, to be for you to work with to do that. And they can be very easy to do nowadays with all of these apps that are out there.
Okay, so we'll make some links in our notes about the apps that you particularly like. Because here's the thing: we need to be able to trust where our money's going, don't we? And as novices, as it relates to investing, if I'm using an app, I want to know that it's got my best interest at heart. So, I mean, do you have a particular app that you would recommend, Lisa?
There are lots of apps out there. A couple of the ones that are pretty common and easily used are Yahoo Finance is one. And they provide a lot of information. They're really good for especially beginners looking for up-to-date information and so forth and what's going on with different stocks and all of that. And they'll help you to track your portfolio. Acorns is another one. And that really helps to do what they call micro investing, learning about investing by rounding up purchases. They have a different type of model. So you can invest very small amounts into diversified portfolios. And it's really a great way for beginners that don't have a lot to invest and they just want to kind of get started and sort of learn. And it's very easy way to learn with a little bit amount of money, so you're not feeling too nervous about it, and it gets you started. And then they also help you to identify your risk tolerance too. Stash is another one, and they provide a platform that has personalized financial education, and they will help you down figuring out your investment preferences, your risk tolerance. They provide some educational resources. So those are a few, but there's lots of them out there and they can be very easy to use. And you can start with just a little bit of money, which I recommend if you're doing this for the first time. Start with a very small amount so you don't feel too nervous about, oh my gosh, I'm investing too much money here and I'm not sure what I'm doing. Learn with a small amount of money. And then as you learn and you try it, it's like a lot of things, then you'll start to feel more comfortable with it. And then you can start increasing the amount of money that you're investing yourself. And you'll feel more comfortable and confident and know really what you want to invest in or don't want to invest in. And it's also helps you on that journey to figure out your level of risk that you want to take and how much you want to diversify as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that word a few times now during our conversation. So diversifying. So what does that, just explain a bit more about what that means, Lisa. So to diversify your portfolio, what is it we're actually doing? Because I've heard that term mentioned quite a few times. And I'm like, okay, so that sounds great, but what does that mean in practical terms?
Well, diversifying really has to do with, so for example, if you invested in just one stock in one company and something really bad happened to that company and they filed for bankruptcy.
Yes.
Now your stock is worth nothing. If you invested all of your money in that one stock and now it's worth nothing, you lost everything. But if you invest in different types of stocks, then if that one stock it lost its value and it's now not worth anything, let's say that was 5% of your total investments, it's still not good, but at least you didn't lose 100%. You lost 5% of your total investments. So you want to diversify and you want to have invested in different areas. And you can do that by working with a financial planner. You can do that on your own through just individual stocks. You can do it through mutual funds because they kind of diversify for you and they invest in different stocks. If you invest in individual stocks, I strongly recommend that you invest in something that you know something about.
Okay.
So I have a girlfriend of mine, and she's actually done really well in investing, and she had no background on it, and she tried it, and then she started growing what she was investing. And the way that she invests is she opens up her cupboard and she looks at what she's buying for her and her family.
Wow.
And then she says, oh, well, if I'm spending my money on this in this company, then I'm going to invest in that because I know something about that. And she actually had done incredibly well by doing that. So you don't have to necessarily get into all the financial understanding about every company. But I strongly recommend that it's something that if you're investing yourself in individual stocks, it's something that you know something about. So for example, I'm not intimately familiar with cryptocurrency. I've never really gotten personally involved with that. A lot of people have, and they've made a lot of money. It's not something that I've know a lot about or know enough about that I feel really confident in investing in it. And that's just me personally. So it's a matter of, there's other areas that I do know something about. And so I only invest where I feel like I know something about that company. I know something about their product or their service and I like it. And so, my friends like it. Maybe it's Amazon because you're buying Amazon products all the time. Maybe it's, it could even be a certain beauty company that you and your girlfriends all like. So the more that it's a company, if you're going to invest individually, that it's a company that you really know something about, the more confident and comfortable that you're going to be. And as I said, like the example with my girlfriend, she just looks around her house and what is she and her friends, what are they buying? What do they like? And then she goes and invests in it. And she's done very, very well doing that.
Gosh, that's so smart. Yeah. And really just, it doesn't take an expert to be able to do that either. It's just having the awareness and the foresight to actually kind of look what's going well around you as far as companies go. Can I go back to savings for a minute, Lisa? Because we're actually going to, spoiler alert, our next episode actually is going to be all about investment, risk tolerance, and that type of thing. So I don't want us to go too far down that path right now. But we discussed in depth about, getting started with investing in this particular episode. But let's take it back to the savings aspect, because, again, where would you advise us to even start with that if we, again, are in a situation where maybe we don't have a lot of money?
Mm-hmm.
Where would we be putting that as it relates to savings?
Well, the savings really starts again with that emergency fund. I think a high yield savings account works really well for that emergency fund. And then beyond that, you can go into other sorts of savings. You can, you can set up and do some investments as part of your savings as well. You can put it into, you can either put it into a certificate of deposit, which actually the interest rates being high, you can put it in fairly safe CDs now that actually get you a pretty good rate of return, which is a lot of the reason why there's a lot of people that have done that more than actually investing in the stock market right now. So it depends upon the interest rates. Yes.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And if you're comfortable enough, you can take some of that savings and invest it in some of the lower risk stocks or mutual funds or something like that as well. So, and it again, it doesn't take much. You can invest $100 and at least get started. And the more often that you invest even a little bit of money and you have it automatic, it just grows faster than you think it will.
That's really interesting. Okay, so the theme I'm hearing throughout of this, Lisa, is to just get started. And if you're new to this, small steps, baby steps are the best way to proceed. What if, on the flip side, we have quite a lot of money at our disposal? Say we've inherited some money, maybe it's come to us via a divorce, maybe we've got a great bonus at work. What would we do with larger amounts of money as it relates to both in saving and investing?
Well, I think if you've got larger amounts of money, it's really good to get a financial planner, a certified financial planner, connect with them because they can really help you to better manage that. And when you have larger amounts of money, you really need to understand your risk tolerance. Because the dollar fluctuations in investments can be much higher. And so if you don't have the stomach for that and you can't, it makes you very uncomfortable, you're going to lose sleep over it. A certified financial planner can walk you through how to determine your level of risk tolerance and what your short-term and long-term goals are. And then you can start to invest in broader areas. And, and especially if you're looking long-term, retirement, and you've got a significant amount of investments, then you can look at whether how much you want to invest in the stock market. Do you want to start investing in real estate, and go into rentals, for example? Maybe you, if you are what they call an accredited investor, you can invest in private companies. And again, companies that So if you know a company and you have an opportunity to invest in a private company, it's a higher risk area, but you can then do that if you've got a significant amount available to invest.
Can I just ask you, is there like a set amount that you would advise someone to seek professional help over? So, for example, if you've got more than, say, 50 grand at your disposal to invest, is that the time to seek a professional, or is there like a rule of thumb there?
I don't think that there's really a rule of thumb around that. It depends upon your level of confidence in investing. Obviously, if you have $100 you're investing, I wouldn't go to a certified financial planner.
Yeah, sure.
But if you have some amount of money to invest and you have some level of risk tolerance that's not really low. If you have a very low level of risk tolerance, you probably should just go see a certified financial planner and have them help you. Okay. If you have a higher level of risk tolerance and you feel confident and comfortable in investing, I think there's a lot that you can do on your own. And a lot of times it doesn't need to take a lot of time. But those are some of the main factors in sort of determining that.
Okay, love it. Is there anything else at all that you'd like to share with us as it relates to what we're talking about today?
I think just what we've been talking about. Start small, get started, have automatic withdrawals or into some sort of a savings or investment. And if you start small, you can be confident and just try it out. Just try investing in different stocks. There's lots of apps out there, and once you get started and get comfortable, it gets easier and easier to do. And then it's like playing a game. Like, what can I invest in, and how well can I do with this? And then you watch it, and then it can become actually quite fun to do.
I was going to say, it's something I haven't actually gone along this path before, but just listening to you, and you're so great at breaking things down, Lisa, and putting it into like manageable, bite-sized steps. And I'm actually kind of excited. After this podcast, I'm going to have a look at some of these apps that you've recommended. And for our listeners, we will put links to everything that Lisa has mentioned in the podcast in our show notes. And we'd love to hear from you. Have you already started investing? How is your savings going? How do you save? We'd love to hear what's working for you, what you maybe need some help with. And if you've got any ideas for future topics and future episodes, we'd absolutely love to hear from you, because this podcast is all about you and it's about empowering you. And so thank you so much, Lisa. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Fearless Money Management. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave us a review. Your support helps us to reach even more amazing women on their journey to financial freedom. Bye for now.